Good morning, this is Travis Shaw with the Mosby Heritage Area Association, coming to you from Green Hill Cemetery near Berryville in Clark County, Virginia. I'm here again with World War I historian James Taub, and we're going to talk about probably the most famous World War I soldier to come out of the Mosby Heritage Area, and that is Captain Lloyd Williams of the United States Marine Corps. Lloyd Williams was a native of Berryville. He's born and raised at the family estate Nottingham. He also spends a significant amount of his childhood at his grandmother's home, Claremont. He attends Virginia Tech. He's a cadet there. And then in 1909, he joins the United States Marine Corps as an officer. He sees action in Nicaragua. And then when the United States enters the First World War, he's actually serving as a captain in the 2nd Battalion of the 5th Marines. And it's as captain in the 5th Marines that he is going to achieve everlasting fame for his role in the Battle of Belleau Wood. On June 2nd, 1918, he and his company are going into battle in France. They're part of a major push against a German counterattack at Belleau Wood. And as he is heading into battle, a French officer approaches him and gives him orders to pull back to a more defensible position. And this is when he utters the words that will go down in Marine Corps legend. He tells this officer, "Retreat hell, we just got here." And he and his men are going to continue forward into the fray. And James is here. He's going to tell us a little bit about kind of the Battle of Belleau Wood in the wider context and what happens during those weeks in June.
Yeah. So the Battle of Belleau Wood is part of a much larger overall Allied defense during a German push that was coming down towards the towns of Château-Thierry, trying to get on those main roads in towards Paris. Now, the American troops will be fighting for a few weeks by this point, particularly soldiers of the 3rd Division. But the 2nd Division is very quickly shifted from their training areas to the defense of Paris, just to the west of Château-Thierry. And the 2nd Division is a really interesting division because it's the only unit in the American Expeditionary Force that's mixed, meaning that one of its brigades, the 4th Brigade, is an all-Marine brigade, and the other brigade is an Army brigade. Only 2 Marine regiments serve in combat in France, the 5th and the 6th Marines, Captain Williams being a member of the 5th. The other units being the 9th and the 23rd Infantry of the United States Army. So it's a really interesting kind of cohort of men. They arrive there on the 2nd, as Travis mentioned, and immediately go into defensive positions to thwart that German push west, moving towards Paris. Then on the 6th, the Marines launched arguably one of the most famous attacks in the entire history of the Marine Corps, and that's where they crossed this massive open wheat field, pushing into Belleau Wood, getting a foothold in the wood. And that day, June 6, 1918, is the bloodiest day in Marine Corps history, and up until the Second World War. And more Marines are killed during that attack than in any previous war that the Marines were engaged in. Now, it's really interesting because the United States, as we talked about earlier, wasn't necessarily prepared for the war, whether in terms of material, in terms of the amount of men and women in uniform, but also in terms of tactics. And this Marine assault across this wheat field, which Captain Williams was a part of, while it goes down in Marine Corps legends, it's also a prime example of just how underprepared American military thinking was for the war. The Marine attack at Belleau Wood would have looked incredibly similar to veterans of the American Civil War fighting at St. Petersburg or even Gettysburg or any of the fighting around here in Northern Virginia, because these men were advancing, while not shoulder to shoulder, they were still advancing in lines at a walking pace. They weren't under cover from artillery support. They weren't necessarily listening to the French and British advisors that were telling all the American generals, listen, we've been at this for 3 years now, almost 4 years. You should pay attention. We're starting to fight this more combined arms war involving tanks, artillery, planes, all being coordinated together. And the Marines take hundreds of losses just from the fact that they are unsupported. Now, they do get a foothold in the wood, and we think of June 6, 1918 as that pivotal, that really important moment in the battle when the Marines make this famous attack. The wood isn't cleared until the end of June. There's continuous fighting in and out of the woods, and by the end of that fight in Belleau Wood, those 2 regiments of Marines, the rest of the 2nd Division, which are fighting around the town of Vaux and in the town of Belleau itself, as well as the rest of the American Expeditionary Force, are starting to get a grasp on modern warfare. And those divisions that are engaged there will start to spread the word to the other newly arriving American troops. Listen, this is not the same fight we've been engaged in since the Revolution. This is a new type of war. This is a modern war. Unfortunately, it comes at the cost of many lives, including that of Captain Williams.
That's right, yeah. In the weeks of fighting that followed that advance on June 6th, the Marines are going to take tremendous casualties in and around Belleau Wood, and one of those casualties is Captain Williams. On June 11th, he's injured both by shrapnel from an artillery shell, as well as poison gas, one of these new innovations that's on the battlefield in the First World War. And he is going to be evacuated to a field hospital, and while he's there, he actually begs the doctor. He says, "Never mind me, look after my good men." And those are probably the last recorded words of Captain Williams as they're trying to evacuate the hospital. It comes under German shell fire, and Major Williams is killed. Captain Williams is killed. And his body will actually remain over in France until the early 1920s. His family repatriates his remains. The body is shipped back to New York, and when it arrives in New York, there's a whole military review, and General Pershing himself actually eulogizes the bravery of Captain Williams. The body then returns here to Berryville by train, and thousands line the streets of Berryville to get a glimpse of this hometown hero. The body lays in state at the Grace Episcopal Church in town. The service is so popular that they have to open the windows and the doors of the church so that the gathered crowd can hear their hero being memorialized. And then the body was escorted here to Green Hill Cemetery by members of the American Legion, some other veterans. So it's a really remarkable story. Lloyd Williams is not just a Clark County hero, not just a Virginia hero, but really a national hero, and very much becomes a symbol of American bravery during the First World War. There's a tremendous legacy to Major Williams. Of course, there's a building at Virginia Tech named after him, and to this day, the motto of the 2nd Battalion Marines are his famous words from June 2nd, "Retreat hell." So with that, I think we're going to continue on to another stop, talk a little bit about the hometown contribution, the home front contribution here in the Heritage area. Anything else to add about the Marines?
No, I think it's just really important that we're here at this beautiful cemetery in outside of Berryville, and it's important to note that wherever you are, whether you're watching within the Heritage area or you're watching anywhere around the world, American soldiers in the First World War, their families had the option to bring them back. And while Captain Williams and guys like Sergeant York are nationally known heroes at the time of the First World War and those years preceding, a lot of men didn't have that same fame. So I highly encourage you to go out and check not only the cemeteries, but any of the other historic sites in your area. Find men like Captain Williams or the unnamed privates who might have come back after having served and maybe killed in the First World War. So get out there and explore your local history like we are today.